Um, Today we are doing part three of this wonderful series that is being hosted by the OSU Café and Kayleen, who is going to be taking the lead here in a moment. If for whatever reason you weren't able to watch either the previous two or there's other folks that you want to pass these along to, the recordings for all these are on our YouTube channel that's available, so you can have access to all this wonderful stuff. But with that, we are in the final stretch here. So, Kayleen, I'm just going to pass it along over to you for part
That
three.
sounds good. I'm going to get my share screen stuff up and running here, everybody. So give me a moment. All right. You know how it goes, I think. I'm guessing. And let me put on present mode. Da, 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 da. Can we see my screen? Matt gave it a thumbs up, so I'm going to move the images over here. Actually, I'll minimize that. Okay. Just some steps to get started. Hi, everybody. I see some things in the chat, so I'm just going to take a little gander. Okay, so someone's here taking some notes. Let's see. Oh, AI assistant. Okay. Um, I wanted to say I put two links in the chat, and I'll ask, as folks come in and when we get there, if someone wants to recycle these links as needed, that first one will pretty much get you to the second one. So it's the beav.es/meetjill. And Mike, or if anybody, Matt wants to check it out and make sure that it pulls up all right before we get there, that would be awesome. Let me know if there's any issues. Um, oh, one new in the chat. So I'm going to get started, everybody. My name is Kayleen, and I am here yet again from Cafe, the Center for Advancing Financial Education. We're housed at Oregon State University, and we serve anybody in Oregon, so that's you, and anybody connected, of course, to the OSU community. And this is my part three presentation on budgeting with purpose, designing the life that you want to live. And so as it was just mentioned, if you have any interest in circling back to part one or two, the recordings are on the YouTube station. So just know that they're there because they all do kind of like build off one another, I'd say. But as a reminder, a little bit about me, I'm an instructor and an accredited financial counselor with Cafe. I'm also a program manager at Cafe. Um, and I've been around Cafe since the beginning in March 2020, and I've been at OSU for more than 11 years now, helping students on all things paying for college in multiple different capacities. So today, well, I guess if you did miss parts one and two, in part one, we really explored, money stories, money psychology, what are our own values, what are our goals, what are our supportive habits that we do or we don't have in place, but have an awareness of that. And building off of that was actually getting into like, okay, cash flow, assessing cash flow. How much money do I have coming in and going out? Observing some of those patterns. So then that could, help you create a budget. And we explored some budgeting methods and how to project into the future, income flowing in and money going out. And today we're going to look at optimizing your situation and ongoing planning. So we're going to focus on making a budget work better in real life. So it's about flexibility, creativity, and adapting to changing circumstances. And we're going to pull up this page that I put in the chat, but I'll put it back in the chat. You'll get cued to pull it up when the time comes, but we're going to explore different strategies on how to optimize. So when I say optimization, what do I actually mean by optimization? Optimization usually is making small adjustments based on an awareness that you've gained about your habits, your values, the projections that you have for your budget, that ultimately can make your budget work better for your real life. So optimization matters because our financial lives are not static. Our workloads change, family needs shift, the cost of living rises, and unexpected things expenses, for example, can pop up without any warning. So we need a way to respond with some sort of flexibility, and optimization kind of gives us that. So the first step in all of this is knowing yourself, which we kind of did in our first session together. Understanding your values, your money story, your money psychology, because doing some of that work allows you to maybe get out of your own way and being able to, dive into your personal finances and budgeting and all of that. It also helps you, you can truly understand what matters to you. And that serves as a nice internal compass and helps you know like what you want to say yes, no to, what do you want to say no to, what do you want to prioritize, etc. And the second step is recognizing your patterns, which is kind of what we explored last time. Because we talked about auditing and tracking, for example. And when you do that, you become very aware of, your spending, your saving habits, that are sort of showing up month after month. What are those stress points that could be causing certain habits? Um, what sort of defaults might you fall into? And when you notice those patterns, you can gain clarity and make some different decisions or continue to do some of the patterns that serve you well. But understanding those patterns regardless is important. And then the third step is figuring out and taking those steps, taking small intentional actions, not going for perfection, um, not a dramatic overhaul oftentimes. Like I actually have worked with clients who they need to and want to make a dramatic overhaul. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but oftentimes it's more sustainable to start with smaller steps and kind of work from there and give yourself time. Just small tweaks that keep your money aligned with your values and your goals, for example. So optimization is really about staying aligned and adjusting to things with intention, especially as life shifts, which it always does. So as a recap, everything we discussed in parts 1 and 2 ultimately comes back to this calculation. Like no matter what tools you use or your methodology you're following for budgeting, what apps, spreadsheets, every budget has the same foundation. It's for this period of time, in the future. Maybe it's a monthly budget, maybe it's weekly, biweekly, quarterly. For that upcoming time period, you're assessing or estimating what are my resources coming in or my income, earned, portfolio, gifted, borrowed, etc. What am I anticipating, flowing out? What are my expenses, basically? So, and that could be fixed expenses, things like rent, that maybe stays the same each month. Maybe it's varied expenses like gas or groceries, where you have the expense every month, but it could go up and down. Or maybe it's something irregular. Like in October, I usually take Lulu, my dog, to the vet, but that doesn't happen every month. So you take that income, you subtract the expenses, and you either have a deficit, which means you have more expenses than an income or the money coming in, or a surplus, which is more income than expenses. And so today we're going to focus on what to do with that number, whether it is a deficit or it is a surplus, or you're just feeling like, I feel a little tight with this. I want to do a little bit better. So we're focusing on how to optimize in either case. When project forward into the future and that number is negative, the result is information. It's not failure. So good on you for looking ahead, for taking time to do this stuff. And if you find that you have a deficit, you're looking ahead in the future, you're giving yourself a chance to be proactive. So trying to frame that for yourself as like, okay, good information. Let's see how we can move forward versus a failure is a good thing to do. It's a good mindset to have because it really is information. So what is it telling you? There's a gap. There's a gap of I have more expenses than income. And the gap gives you time to plan, adjust, and solve rather than to be sort of reactive and surprised. So today we're going to talk about what to do when you see a deficit, how to reduce expenses creatively, because honestly, all of us human beings in the society we're in, most of us have had to be creative to make it to this point. How to increase resources and how to approach the situation, with clarity rather than panic. This is where optimization, kicks in. And again, the goal isn't perfection, but having that awareness is key. So when you're in that situation where you are facing a deficit, you have two levers that you can pull. The first lever is decreasing expenses. That might mean reducing, adjusting, or pausing certain costs temporarily to close the gap. Um, the second lever is to increase resources. So, what are ways to bring in more income or tapping support networks or accessing assistance? Maybe we use a mix of both of them. It all depends on the season of life we're in. So the goal isn't to fix everything at once, but to identify where you have the most flexibility and sort of start there. This is where knowing your values is so important and your money patterns is so important because that can help you kind of know which levers work best for you or are accessible to you. And before we go too far into specifics, I want to pause and talk about the strategies and mindsets that make optimization more doable in real life. So these aren't necessarily rules or rigid systems, but they're kind of gentle tools or things that you might experiment if you're in the scenario where your money's tight or you're facing a deficit and you just some things to try. So prioritize essentials. What I mean by that is some people focus on prioritizing essentials. So these are the things that I absolutely need. I need food. I need transportation. I need to pay my, car payment, my house payment, etc. But for the non-essentials, could I trim 5 to 10% somewhere? So just what's not essential, and could I cut back at least 5 or 10%? And then you could, with what that amount that you cut, maybe that helps with that that possible gap of funding, or you could do something more strategic with the amount that you end up saving. No spend or low spend days help us notice which purchases we truly miss and which one we don't miss, let alone just kind of, I've worked with clients before who, um, you know, maybe every day they're in the habit of getting coffee and food at work. And so, you know, in an effort to maybe save some areas in some of their lives, they decide it's too much to just cut that out completely. So they pick 2 days a week where they bring their lunches and they don't buy it I say on campus because that's what I'm used to, but buy it at work. So trying a no spend or low spend day can overall just help you in this area of potentially decreasing some costs, but then also allow you to just sort of, what can I live without? What can I not live without? And maybe make some longer term adjustments from there. A subscription check is often one of the quickest wins. And I've seen this happen time and time again, where once we actually lay everything out, it's like, oh yeah, I have maybe 3 entertainment subscriptions. Could I go down to one at least for this period of time? Um, and sometimes the answer is no, but sometimes there's something there that could just be cut back again, even if it's just for a period of time. It's easy to like even annual subscriptions, maybe it's not monthly, and sort of to have those and forget that we have those because we're bombarded with those opportunities. The 24-hour pause rule is great when you want to avoid kind of a reactive spending or impulse type of spending decision. So, maybe before you buy the thing, like I have Amazon, and certainly around this time I've been increasing my purchases for holidays, stuff and things coming up. So it's like instead of just purchase right away, kind of like impulsively, like let it sit in the cart for 24 hours. Do I the next day you may have a little more clarity. Maybe you aren't even motivated to go back in and purchase it all the way. Or maybe you've ran it through your own sort of filter to, is it in alignment with my values? Can I afford it? If yes, then maybe you buy it, but you can buy it with a little more confidence and intention. Um, it's nice to focus on one category at a time. So if there's one particular category that you want to focus on when you're at a deficit or you just want to improve your situation, can be nice versus trying to take it all on at once. So maybe that's for a month at a time. You can kind of figure out what your pace is, but maybe it's honing in on grocery spending. It's like, and I have a very high grocery budget, honestly. That could be an area where if I needed to do this anytime soon, I could really focus on and probably be more intentional and utilize some more strategies there. Um, so picking that one category versus all of them at once is great. Um, just making time for a weekly 10-minute check-in, like, hey, how did things unfold this week? Is what I thought was going to happen? Do I need to make some adjustments moving forward? It just helps you to catch any small issues early on before they become bigger problems. And these strategies always work better when they're grounded in your values, what matters most to you. So, just a simple question as you're making decisions on, does this align with what matters most to me right now? Is in alignment with my goals? That sort of thing can help you again kind of know what you want to say yes or no to in regards to spending your money. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. We are going to explore Jill's situation. And I want you to imagine, you use your imaginations with me. Like, imagine that Jill is someone on your team, another trio professional, and they're balancing work, family, rising costs. Um, they're just feeling financially stretched and they want to explore ways to optimize, options to reduce expenses, increase resources, etc. They're kind of open. Um, so I want to see if everybody can pull up this beav.es. I put the link in the chat. Hopefully that's still kind of circulating in there. I see someone put it in the chat now. So I'm hoping everyone can pull that up and have it in front of you. I'm going to look at the chat really fast and just, if there's any issues about it, I'd love to know. Um, okay, I don't see anyone saying that they're having any issues with it, so I'm going to flow on. So the activity connects us to our cafe, like the cafe canvas page. And so we're going to explore that in just a moment. Um, but basically, as a group, we're going to take up to 10 minutes. I don't know if we'll need that full time, but just imagine you're supporting Jill to kind of brainstorm their situation. You don't have a lot of information, but I want you to use that beav.es/optimize, that link, and this is the Canvas page that we've put together to help people explore this. Now, it is not all encompassing because there are an infinity amount of ideas and creative ideas that, you all have, that people have, that we're all doing to make things work. It's a starting point to gather some ideas in a variety of categories. But I'd love for you to put some ideas that resonate with you that you think like, hey, maybe Jill, we don't know the full context of her situation, but maybe she could look into this. And you can include things both from the Canvas page and then also just your own creative ideas, because I'd love to capture those as well. So, a quick note about the beav.es/optimize. Um, I want to kind of explain how to use this page. So at the top, you're going to see a section called How to Use the Page. And the idea is simple. You want to identify what's happening in your budget. And in this case, Jill's budget. Jill's maybe just feeling tight with her finances and looking for ways to save money or increase resources. And so in that case, you would scroll down to where it says ways to save, ways to increase resources. You'd expand each section. I would suggest going one part at a time and just kind of explore what resonates with you as you're adding some things to that spreadsheet. Um, and so with that said, I'm gonna like be quiet for a little bit, and I'm hoping you all are pulling that up, looking at what's there, thinking creatively, look at the transportation category, the housing category, the food category, look at the different ways to increase income as ideas, and just anything that might resonate for you think Jill should look into, add it to the list, and or any of your own creative ideas. So I'll try to be quiet. I'll check in with you all. I'll also put up the spreadsheet myself and check in with you in just a bit. I'm checking in. I see some ideas. Maybe I'll give it a few more minutes. If I see some people like really typing, I'll give it even a little bit longer. Anyone having any ahas that they want to come off mute and share? Or any creative ideas that, kind of beyond what they've seen here? I just thought of one, so I just typed it down. Okay, I don't see too many more ideas going, so I'm going to, well, I guess I'll just pull it up from here. Um, so we don't ignore our good work, everybody. Now, look, there are an infinite amount of things that like could be brought up, and what's relevant for one situation might not be relevant for somebody else's situation. But having a community of people that you can bounce ideas off of is really helpful. We have a basic needs center on our campus, and that's like kind of they're so great at that. A student can bring a situation, budgeting situation, for example, and get some support and thinking creatively about like optimizing, for example. So having that community of people like us sharing ideas, maybe like we're doing now, whether it's an original idea or maybe pulling from some ideas here is great. But let's see what some of you all said. I see lower your monthly phone bill, public transit, and all of this, right? We don't have context behind Jill's situation, but these are considerations. Um, Borrowing instead of buying, uh, love that. Or if you're going to buy, maybe you do thrift store. That's like my favorite thing in the world to do, so it's easy for me to recommend. Um, Utilizing a food pantry in the community, or if Jill's connected to a campus, maybe there's an option there. Um, we have the transportation again, public transportation. Get a weekend job. Eliminate streaming services, or even just like one or two streaming services. Maybe that would help, right? Yeah, someone else said purchase as much as you can secondhand thrift. Love that. Gig employment, there's a lot of gig opportunities. Maybe one weekend for a full weekend, Jill does, DoorDash or Instacart or something like that. Um, We have another local food bank resources or call 211, 211. Probably there are those of you in this call who've heard of that, or you can go to 211.org. Anywhere from within the United States, you can locate your community and see what resources exist for, food, housing, utilities, etc., medical, see what local resources you might have access to. Um, Being very strategic with groceries, even something like gas. So my partner actually does this really well. He shops on Friday at Fred Meyer's and he uses the coupons and he uses that app and his phone number. And he's very strategic on what he's buying, what's on sale. And then he gets 4 times the points on Fridays, which always equates to money off when he goes to fill up his tank at the Fred Meyer gas station. I just think that's such a great idea. I don't do that because I like the grocery outlet, but um, if Jill has some sort of talent or hobby, something that she doesn't mind doing, maybe she could do something like that that could fit, get paid to do something like that, whether it's dog walking or there's a period of time where I got a side gig cleaning and I loved it because I could do it 2 weeknights. Um, and it was like reasonable hours and like, look, I like to move around and I actually like to clean. So it wasn't like something I dreaded. It was actually kind of fun. So something like that, something that you don't mind doing that, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to have it on the side. Um, Maybe there's some items that Jill and the family could come together and think like, what might we be able to sell? Um, Optimizing your employee benefits. So I learned probably about a year ago that there was something at OSU called Active Fitness, something like that. But one of my things that I pay for and I prioritize every month is a gym membership, but I was paying a lot more than what I'm paying now because of this active fit. So knowing what those benefits are and just making sure that if there's anything there that you can utilize, um, you know, to go ahead and do it. I tell our students that too. You're paying for student fees, so make sure you're utilizing that to the maximum before you're, going elsewhere and paying for it out of pocket because you're already paying for it here. Oh, insurance, shopping around for better terms. This is also something that, like, as my life has unfolded, I'm engaged, I have a domestic partner, and our lives are combined. So it's like, oh yeah, we don't have to do insurance stuff separately. We have a lot more, between the two of us, car, renter, and things to bundle. So we've been shopping around, and I mean, uh, I'm going to be able to save like $100, between the two of us, we'll both be able to save about 100 combining. So anyways, these are just some creative ideas. It's not an exhaustive list. But let me pull up the presentation again real quick. And if anyone wants to take themselves you know, off mute and say or contribute, please do. I'm sure hearing my voice gets a little tiring on the other end. So bear with me as I flow through to where we were. Okay, so ways to increase resources and or decrease expenses. I want you all just to take a moment and what's one small takeaway, if applicable? Um, something that you want to explore, try, reconsider, or maybe pay attention to in the next 30 days. It doesn't have to be major. And maybe it's not for you. Maybe you weren't reading through there like, huh, this really resonates with me, and that's fine. But maybe just something to keep in mind for even somebody else in your life. Is there anything in here that kind of resonated? And if you're comfy sharing in the chat, wonderful. If not, then just note it for yourself and I'll be quiet for a moment. Oh, yes, lower streaming. Look into insurance help with gym membership. Sharon, I have no idea if your employer offers that, but it's worth looking into. For me, it was called Active Fit, and I was so surprised that like almost I live in Bend and almost a lot of the gyms in Bend had that. So yeah, it saved me some good money there. And to be honest, it's in alignment with my values and my goals right now too. So that's something that I want to say yes to, but be able to say yes to that and save some money is great. Anyone else? Thank you, Sharon. Okay. So now, you guys, we could spend so much time. I just want to say, again, this Canvas resource is not the end all be all, but it does provide some starting points, some ideas. Um, And so, I don't know if it's useful to you, just know that those Canvas sites, that Canvas site is available to you, your students, etc. at any time. It's free public facing module and we can always add to it. So if you have other creative ideas that would be nice to have in all one spot, please let me know. I'll add it there. So, when projections show a surplus, sometimes when you do a projection, for your budget, income subtract expenses, you see that you have a surplus, even if it's just a small one or maybe it's a big one. Um, and so, what happens for a lot of us, it's very tempted to be like, yeah, extra money. But in financial planning, we want to treat the surplus a little differently. It represents kind of capacity to protect yourself, to get more secure and to move towards things that really matter to you, like with intention. So, when you do have a surplus and you're trying to figure out like what to do, the first step is to protect. And so we're going to dive into kind of what we mean by that. But just like a life vest on the water, your financial foundation keeps you afloat. So that means building a small emergency buffer, for example. Um, making sure that you're properly insured. If you have anything like a high risk bill, whether it's just a psychological like bill or debt that stresses you out, or in general, you have like credit cards that feel stressful and are stressful. Maybe you need to pay additionally towards those. The goal is stability first. So a surplus is more powerful kind of when that base is strong. So some of you have heard me mention this before, but one of the things that if you were to pull up any article and read about emergency funding, the experts say you want to have about 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. So if you have 1 month worth of your essentials, like rent, car payment, you need to eat, food, utilities, what are those essential things for 1 month? Add it up. And you times that by three and you times that by six. And that's kind of the range of an emergency fund that you would want. With an emergency fund, the deal is you like set it aside and you literally don't touch it unless it's an emergency and you absolutely need to. Um, it's hard to go from 0 to 3 months of essential expenses saved. So you start small. And the goal with an emergency fund too is like in any moments of time you might need it. So you want to keep it very liquid. And what I mean by that, it's something you can easily convert to cash. So if you have a surplus, it'd be worth kind of checking in to see like, hey, do I have an emergency savings? Something like totally set aside, I don't have to touch, but it's there if I need it. And if so, is it at an adequate amount where, I mean, there's so many worst case scenarios, and so assessing your own worst case scenario is important. But like, heaven forbid, if I lose my job, um, then having my essential expenses covered for 3 months gives me a buffer. That's kind of like where that idea is coming from. Um, Insurance, making sure that you're properly covered. Like maybe you had to get a health plan that you weren't overly excited about, but it's the one that you can afford. Maybe next time around you are able to afford the one that costs a little bit more each month, but provides you a better coverage. Um, are you adequately covered with auto insurance? That's something that like when we sign up for auto insurance, a lot of, there's state minimums. We have to have minimums, but oftentimes those minimums aren't really enough if we were liable for an accident. So just looking at those and making sure that you have the protection that you feel like is adequate. If you're a person that has dependents, like if anyone's depending on your income, maybe you look at term life insurance, for example. So those are things that you want to protect, high risk debts. We sort of talked about that. Again, whatever to get yourself with that sort of stability, that base. From there, if you're feeling okay, I got my emergency savings, I'm feeling adequately protected, it's coming back to what are my priorities, my values, my goals right now, and getting organized with some of those goals. So, short-term goals are usually like within 1 year. Medium term could be, 2 years to 5 years, and long-term goals could be 5+ years. Everyone defines those a little bit differently. But if you can outline your time horizon for those goals, like by when do I want to meet these goals? And then in the short term, what do I need to be doing towards these goals? It can help you shape like what you might need to save for or what you might need to invest for. And so taking time to map that out is super important. Um, Let your surplus money go towards what matters most to you, which you've heard me say that over and over again at this point. So again, being clear on what you value, what matters to you, and prioritizing your money for that is super important. You also want it to be realistic and personal, like to ensure that your present priorities genuinely fit your life, that they're practical, that you have supportive habits. Like I have a dream that one day I will own property and be able to kind of have this life here for a period of time and then also get to every year go live in Latin America. That's what I want. But saving for that property when I don't even have my own first house yet is like not realistic. It's something that I want, and at some point in time, I'm going to be able to prioritize that. But it's not in alignment with what's realistic for my life. So it's important to kind of run that through your filter. Like, is this realistic and relevant to me today? Because if it's not, we're not likely to stick to it. Yeah. Again, stability first, and then once that foundation is there, you can start to figure out where you need to go from there. So yeah, you've gotten in touch with what is in alignment with you today, and that's where you decide, where am I going to put my surplus? My bases are covered, so now what? So maybe you save. If your emergency funds are good to go, maybe you want to build a revolving fund. And what I mean by revolving fund, those are for those planned but like irregular expenses that always come up. Maybe you have $1,500 in account that you keep that like as Lulu needs to go to the vet or your tires need to be changed, you're pulling from that so you're not touching your emergency savings. That's what a revolving account is. Um, Maybe it's a short-term goal that you're saving for, an upcoming trip with someone in your life, a down payment for a car, something like that. Um, when you're saving, that's when you're looking at products like a traditional savings account. A high yield savings account is really awesome because you can earn a little interest on that money that you're saving, more so than a traditional savings account, money market, etc. Those are all account types where if you save your money there, you're earning a little bit of interest, maybe some higher interest, but it's very liquid and accessible for the goal that you have. So if you need it in a moment's notice, you can access it. You might want to pay additionally towards debt. Maybe you don't have any high risk debt, but there's some debts that don't have any prepayment penalties. And the sooner you pay it off, it's the less interest that you have to pay overall. So maybe you target some of those debts potentially. Um, Maybe you have that long-term goal, like retirement is something that's all of us are sort of thinking about somewhere in there, or will have to think about, and that is more of a long-term goal. And with investing, investing requires for those goals that are 5+ years in the future, because when you invest your money, that time is really on your side. Compound interest can do its thing, for example. And so if retirement is something that you're like, I need to put, I would like to start paying additionally towards retirement, or um, maybe you want to, like for my Costa Rica home one day, maybe I have an ETF specifically for that. And as I get extra money, I kind of feed that, knowing that I'm probably not touching that for at least 5 years, if not more. Um, so investing your money could be something that you consider. And also generosity, supporting the people in your life or within your community or causes that are really important to you. Maybe it's small contributions, but these, uh, but you're intentional with it, and it's a reflection of your own values, and it makes the world around you a little bit better. That's good stuff. I don't know if you believe in karma, no judgment one way or the other, but I do find when you give out that generous spirit, you get a lot more back. So that's something to consider as well. So you have a surplus of funds. It's sort of like you ask yourself, is there anything risky or essential that needs attention now? If yes, then I'm in the protect. Like, what do I need for emergency savings? Do I have any high risk debts that I need to look at first? How's my insurance, etc.? But if the answer is no, then I'm reflecting on aligning with my values and my goals and kind of figuring out, okay, well, what do I need to be doing with this so this money's working for me? And that's where I might choose to save, pay additionally towards debt, invest, you know, giving back generosity in some way. So I want you all, I really would love some participation in the chat if at all possible. But let's say you do some budgeting and you see, my goodness, in the next however many pay periods, um, all my upcoming pay periods, I'm set to have a $50 extra surplus. Um, what would you focus on, or how would you walk through deciding? Now, if you don't want to share, you don't share. If anyone feels comfy sharing, by all means, the chat's there. I can always give another example too. Thank you. I see save for vacation activities. Love that. So that must be something that's like, that's important to you, that's relevant, that's like a goal that you have, having a vacation of some sort. I'd love to hear more about that. Um, Love it. Extra in the emergency fund. So maybe an assessment of like, hey, I could use some more of my emergency fund. It's not up to quite where I'd want it to be, so that's where I'm going to prioritize. Oh, a retirement trip. Ooh, retirement trip, Sharon. Where are you going to go? Maslow's hierarchy of assessment. Like, do I need anything immediately? Of course, yeah. Looking at those basic needs first and kind of building from there. Pay credit card or whatever debt in the moment. So like really prioritize if you pay off that debt quicker or sooner, then that just helps future you have a greater surplus. So that's a great one, Andres. Thank you. Yeah, and probably go out to eat with my wife. I love that. Like you got to have a little time for fun as, and connection. So that sounds wonderful. Even if there are needs that need to be met, it doesn't all have to be met immediately. I love that, Caroline. Thank you for saying that. It's like, yes, there are some unmet needs and things like that, but it's like it's not going to be all at once and that's okay. Disney World with the whole family, like everybody. Sharon, does that include grandkids, I wonder? I don't remember. I think you had said you had grandkids. Um, that would be so fun. Thank you everyone for sharing. I really, really, really appreciate that. Uh, I think for me, I feel good about my base for now. Like I feel really good about my emergency funds, my insurance coverage. It's been a process, but I finally feel that. Um, My priority, because of Christmas, I've had a lot of additional expenses. So I've de not depleted, but I've definitely need to fill back up my revolving savings. Once that would be done, I have this unknown time frame in my head. I'm hoping it's sooner than later where we're able to buy a house, but that requires a huge down payment. So that's where my funds would go. Um, ah, thank you, Sharon. Very nice. Okay, so I am cruising along to the next one. So budgeting is something that you don't do once. It truly is kind of this tool in an ongoing way. It's something that you touch regularly in small and manageable ways. And so to kind of end our series, I wanted to leave you with a rhythm to consider that can actually, maybe be sustained. I mean, everyone needs to find their own rhythm, truthfully. Budgets can take too, like if you're just starting out your budgeting journey or like you've done it before, but you're kind of coming back to it, it can take a good 2 to 3 months, even more to settle into a rhythm. Like it took me a good 6 months to kind of like find my rhythm, find my rhythm. And now a lot of this is just sort of automatic and I've figured out a system that works for me, at least for now. But it does feel messy at first and that can be normal and part of the process. But weekly check-ins, that really is the heartbeat of your financial life because it doesn't need to be a long session. It could be 5 to 10 minutes and just like really what came in, what went out, how did I do? Oh, I did a little bit too much on the old coffee this week. I'm going to make an adjustment next week. It's also, just taking a gander at those statements, just your bank accounts to make sure nothing funky happens, or happened. Because if so, you want to act on that sooner than later. Credit card statements, etc. Monthly, oops, you want to update so maybe look ahead to the upcoming month. Think about like, okay, December looks totally different than January. So what do I need to adjust for January? We'll be back in school, no presents at that point in time. So kind of adjust for those changes, in those different categories. So I do that. I look ahead to 1 month, and then if I need to make some kind of more major changes, I have the 3 months out, so I can kind of go and see how it flows through the other months if I need to. So quarterly is nice to like zoom out even further and just think about the financial seasons. So, I mean, maybe honestly, maybe on a quarterly basis, just squeezing this in here, but checking your credit reports to see that nothing is funky there. But as you think ahead to like, oh, the upcoming season, it's spring. I'm gonna have to switch my tires. I live in Bend, so snow tires and stuff that has to be swapped. Um, usually I'm usually I'm driving a little bit more, so gas might go up, those sorts of things. And annually, just reviewing your long-term goals. I mean, if you start budgeting for years, you can look back at last year and you could say, okay, how did I do? Where do I need to make some improvements? Or what did I do really well? How was my overall cash flow? How was my net worth? You can do that on somewhat of an annual basis. Um, and also maybe check in on an annual basis on things like insurance, retirement contributions, make sure that that's kind of in alignment. You're at where you want to be. Update beneficiaries, making sure that that's good to go. Like I usually use October when we have to sign up for our health insurance. I go back through and look at my beneficiaries on my bank, through my benefits, but then also on my bank accounts, do I have somebody kind of like if I die that they get access to those funds? Just make sure those things are updated at least once a year, and reset your budget structure if needed. The other thing is this stuff has like money underpins so much of what we do. And so being open to education around it is super important. Because like right now, something might not be as relevant in your life. Like maybe you haven't had to buy a car in a long time, but that could change in a year. So maybe you need to kind of educate yourself again you know, about the car buying process. Or maybe you're interested in investing when you weren't before. So I just wanted to call out some um, free financial education resources that I've personally used that have been such a major help. I also know that you trio advisors and Upward Bound advisors do some financial education with your students, which is amazing. So I strongly recommend this Next Gen Personal Finance. It is a nonprofit and it's for financial educators who are teaching financial education. And so it helps you, the instructor, learn how to teach the various different financial education topics, let alone learn it for yourself. You can pull through lesson plans if you wanted to use that with your students. So for me personally, I've learned so much. And then also professionally, I've been able to pull from NextGen quite a bit. I use Investopedia so often. Like when I was studying for my AFC, my financial counseling certificate, I'd be learning about a concept like life insurance and just kind of need some clarity about term life insurance, whole life. So both NerdWallet and Investopedia, there's plenty of others out there too. But they're free resources and they have visuals, they have terminology broken down in a way that I can understand, sort of quick articles on a variety of topics. So that's been really helpful for me. Um, and then you have things like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has unbiased tools and worksheets on credit, and guides on credit loans, debt mortgages, and more. The FTC is a top resources for learning about scams and such, scams and fraud, and ways to protect yourself, consumer protections. MyMoney.gov has simple planning tools, but it touches on the five main pillars of earn, save, spend, and protect, or protect and borrow. And then Khan Academy has like some awesome videos on a variety of topics, but including, financial topics to bring something to life for yourself, or maybe again for your students if you're teaching it. There's also FINRA's Investor Education Foundation, and they have some great resources there. So I just want to call it out because I realize that like learning about this stuff is kind of a lifelong process, and budgeting sort of underpins a lot of our financial decisions, but there's so many more topics. Uh, so I'm going to pause here, and if in the future there is ever an opportunity for me to continue doing some personal financial, topical webinars, I'd love to hear what kind of topics you'd be interested in. So if you wanted to put some of that in the chat, that would be awesome and helpful. Um, you can also reach out to your administrator and let them know, because there's a chance that in the future I can come back and we could do a series on something brand new now that we're all budgeting machines over here. So I'll be quiet and offer a moment of, um, yeah, offer a moment for you all to put anything in the chat if something comes to mind. Ooh, purchasing a house. That's a good one. I could use myself as a case study. I'm crying because it's like however many years ago I got out of grad school and was able to buy a house, and it's just been such an undertaking, specifically here in Bend. But I'm sure there's so many of us that feel that on the other end of this. Well, if you think of anything, please let Matt know. And maybe not, maybe that's not something that interests you, and that's all right too. Um, but I did do at the trio. conference last year, I did a session on retirement and I did a session on financial education. The more information that I have from you all about what your wants and your needs are, then I can really shape and prepare accordingly. I know it's hard in a webinar to get like, or even just one session to get all the information, but even just some baseline information. Oh, okay. I have some more. Um, let's see, retirement accounts, investment accounts. Love that. Um, thank you, Andres. That was nice. Maybe something more bare bones, going from paycheck to paycheck, having to choose when essentials you get, choose what essentials you get when living in a deficit. Yes. Um, you're welcome, Andres. Thank you. These are some great ideas. Well, everybody, we are almost at the end of the time together. So I'll note what you all have said and just kind of be open to hear more feedback from anything you provide to Matt. Again, you have the three-part series available to you, recordings if you happen to miss any of these. And here's some resources I wanted to call out. So my email, if you ever want to nerd out over this stuff, please let me know. Um, whether you're teaching the topic, you just had a question on something that I said, or just want to meet, I'm always up for a virtual conversation. Any of one in Bend, I'd meet with you in person too. Um, one-on-one appointments with cafe.oregonstate.edu. You've heard me mention that before, but if you just can remember cafe.oregonstate.edu, you can get connected to our one-on-one appointments, and we have a variety of them. Paying for college, yes, but we have basic financial planning, financial counseling with me. Um, we also have learn more about a topic, and if you click on access learning modules and scroll down, you can get paying for college at OSU specific information, paying for college non-OSU specific information, but this basic financial planning. And there's a budgeting section in there that kind of touches on what we've talked about today. So thank you very much. I appreciate you all. I'm going to look at the chat. I see a few more comments. I hear some thank yous. I appreciate it. Um, thank you. That was very nice of you guys to say. Um, Yeah, and I actually have a student appointment that I have to hop off and get to. So if anyone has a quick question, I probably have like a quick minute to answer it. You're welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Kaylin.
Thank you, Matt. Have a good one.
All right. Take care,
Okay.
everyone.
Okay. Bye.